When you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. And I'm here to tell you, number one, that most of you say you want to be successful, but you don't want it bad. You just kind of want it.
Work ethic eliminates fear, So if you put forth the work, then what are you fearing? You know what you're capable of doing, what you're not.
If you put your mind to doing whatever you want to do, good things can happen.
Because limits, like fears, are often just an illusion.
You're listening to the Plunkett Fitness Project. Here's your host, Jamie Plunkett.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to number 6 podcast of the Plunkett Fitness Project. What we're going to talk to you about today is something I see common with clients and in this industry, and it's kind of the binge eating and starving yourself and binge exercising, in result to, missing some workouts or eating too much, generally eating too much. But basically what I want to talk about is, kind of how to plan around that and avoid that situation. And I mean, a lot of it kind of goes into the conversations we've had about cardio and having a plan. And when we overextend ourselves and don't have a strategy is when we really get off track and kind of lose focus on things. And, my thing with that, what I tell clients, what you did yesterday, what you do today, we all make mistakes. It's something that's going to happen. But, when you make a mistake and then you continue to make the same mistake, that's where the problem lies. And what you need to figure out is, okay, you're making a mistake. How do I fix it? So, you may do bad this week, but next week have a plan when that situation arises. So what I see a lot of times is, and what's funny is I will sit down with a new client when they come in, or a prospect, whatever, and I talk to them about nutrition. And, to me, I look at most things pretty black and white. So I will say, all right, I want you to eat, 150 grams of protein a day, 30 grams of fat, and 100 carbs, or whatever it may be, And then me just being as simple as I am, I assume that they're going to follow that, or fairly close to that, or, at least they're not going to not eat one day, And, then what'll happen is a client will come in and their workout will just be crap. They have no energy, their strength isn't there. And, again, me being naive, I guess it is, I'll just be like, man, what is going on?
Yeah, are you sick or what's happening?
Yeah, I'm like, and at first I won't even ask them because I'm like, is it me? Am I imagining stuff? And then I start asking them questions, and they're slow to open up, and they're like, well, and what I'll do, I'll be like, well, what have you eaten today?
Sure.
And they'll tell me what they've eaten. I'm like, well, no, that kind of works out, and then I'll be like, well, what'd you eat yesterday? Well, yesterday I didn't eat very much. I only had a salad. I'm like, well, why did you only have a salad?
Right.
And they'll be like, well, I ate too much on Monday, so yesterday I didn't eat. And I'm just like, wait a minute, what? Like, why would you do that? And I think it's, it's just misinformation and people not understanding the big picture. But anyway, the point of the story being is it usually happens on the weekends.
Yeah.
And then I usually see it on Monday, Tuesday, sometimes into Wednesday, is people will come in and they're weak, their energy's low, they're lethargic, and their training just isn't going well. And a lot of people do not associate nutrition with how they feel and their energy and those sort of things, which to me, again, is basic common sense.
Yeah,
but
they don't think of it as fuel.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for 20 years, so I mean, that's why I think of it that way, and I think the average person doesn't.
Yeah.
But, so what'll happen is, they'll eat pizza, drink alcohol, all that stuff on the weekend, and then they won't eat on Monday, or they'll eat very little. They'll eat 300 calories or something.
Yeah, try to correct it.
Yeah, and then their workout is just crap on Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday. So basically, kind of tying into the cardio stuff we've talked about, today I want to talk about, why that's a problem and why you need to have a balance. And, specifically what I've seen in the past is I'll have clients who have blood sugar issues from a low blood sugar standpoint, and I mean that's part of what's leading up when they're not having energy when they work out. They just haven't eaten enough food for the day to keep their blood sugar levels normal, so then their blood sugar drops when they're active and their energy drops. Maybe they get dizzy. It's just a bad situation, and you're basically just constantly chasing your tail.
Yeah. Like you said, that happens, and it's easy to fall into that cycle. Like if you start doing it, then it's repetitive. And I know that you're a big fan of Andy Frisella, and like I remember like when he lost a lot of weight, and that was one of the things that he talked about is he would, when he gained all of his weight, it was something where he would do fine during the day, but then at night he would just eat like a machine, you know? And I feel like that's a lot of people. And I mean, when I'm struggling, if I'm doing well, I mean, I'm not a trainer. And if I'm doing well, then I'm managing my appetite. I'm managing my control, but it's when the weekends roll around and there's social, you know what I mean? There's social stuff going on, and it's so easy to trick yourself. And I think what you're talking about here is laying out a plan so that because it's going to happen. If you've got an anniversary or a birthday party or something like that, or you've got people in town, or you're going to go out to happy hour or whatever, if you can plan for that, then it might help you, minimize the damage and not veer so far off course that you're taking drastic measures to get back on course, which are actually screwing you up worse in the long run. Yeah.
I mean, I think essentially what happens whenever somebody's either trying to get leaner or trying to stay lean, and, I'm not perfect in this aspect myself either, but, my big thing and what we try to do with this podcast is make people aware.
Sure.
So they at least know they're doing these things, which I feel like is a big thing that is kept from people in this industry. But, what I see a lot is there's 7 days in a week. People will have 3 bad days.
Yep.
And then they don't lose weight like they want to. So then that leads to the, starving themselves, which leads to binging, which leads to binging on cardio. And, it's just a vicious cycle. You're constantly chasing your tail. So, what I try to tell people to do is, take 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Where you're following your plan, and if you're trying to get leaner, you're staying at a caloric deficit. Or, if you're trying to stay, if you're trying to maintain, then you're eating fairly healthy those 6 days a week. It's a lot of natural foods, eating plenty of protein, limiting your fats and your carbs. Where people get off track is they will binge eat from Friday night until Sunday night.
Yeah.
And then that's what leads to not eating on Monday and, maybe thinking you need to do 2 hours of cardio on Monday.
Right.
So, what I try to do is I give people 6 days a week where they follow the plan, and then on the 7th day they can kind of relax. I'll usually have them weigh in on the morning of that 7th day. And then we just kind of monitor how it goes, week after week. And the big thing is we try to stay steady with caloric levels and activity levels throughout the week. So there's not one day where your caloric levels are extremely high. So even on the day you relax a little bit, you can kind of have some, drink alcohol or whatever it is. It's still not binging. And the same thing with exercise. Like, there's not going to be a day where you work out for 3 hours.
Right.
Or whatever it may be. And you look at the big picture of it, and, essentially the things I see is that constant up and down and those swings. And, you end up looking back a year later and you're in the same exact spot or maybe heavier than you were in the first place.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's an easy trap to fall into. And you touched on alcohol. Alcohol right there. I'm not a big drinker. But I do know that if I especially if I drink to excess, if I have a beer or two, it's not a big deal. But if I drink to excess, and especially the older I've gotten, you know, through my 30s. I mean, I'm shot the next day, and not only am I shot physically, my willpower is in the toilet. I mean, like that's one of those things where, you know, you live and you learn, but it's made it easier for me to try to say, okay, I mean, and again, I'm not a big drinker, so it's not like I'm talking myself out of, you know, going out and pounding 10 beers on a Friday night or whatever, like it's college or whatever. But yeah, I feel like that's a catalyst too, because you get through the week, get there Friday. If you make a decision like that on Friday night, then your Saturday is a mess. And then, you know, you're rolling into Sunday, and, you know, you've got football now this time of year. So there's a lot of opportunities to, you know, sit around, you know, kind of be lazy and not take care of yourself the way you should.
Yeah, another thing that brings up the point of that is the fact that a lot of times people will not have a plan, so then they drink on Friday.
Right.
And maybe they ate bad on Friday as well, and they're like, screw it, I already screwed the whole thing up. So then they eat like shit all weekend,
yeah.
You know? And that's why it's so important to kind of have, you know, goals and things that you're striving for, whether it's maintaining or losing or, you know, putting on muscle, whatever it is your goal is, and to monitor those things and have a purpose.
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of literature out there on having a purpose and how that makes people a lot happier. So, you know, whatever it is you're doing, you should have some sort of purpose for why you're doing it, which ultimately is your motivating factor on the days when you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, so if you go out on a Friday, your purpose is what keeps you from continuing it throughout the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the biggest thing is have a plan for what you're going to eat, you know, on a daily basis, your macros, so your protein, your carbs, and your fat, and try to follow that most days, you know. You know, and then have a goal at the end of each week, generally is what we do with our clients, for where you want to be, and that'll kind of keep you on task, you know, the day after you have a bad day. So if you wake up the next morning, you're hungover. And, you know, the other thing is just building consistency. So after you know, if you go out on a Saturday night and you're hungover on Sunday when you wake up and you decide to do the right thing and eat well, you know, do the right thing in relation to your purpose, you know, the next weekend when maybe your willpower isn't as strong and you wake up on Sunday morning hungover, you're going to remember how eating well and doing the right thing on Sunday made you feel better immediately versus dragging it through the entire weekend. And that'll kind of give you it'll make that light bulb click and give you a reason why to, you know, get back on track the next day or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and it's funny, so many, you know, Monday gets such a bad rap as a day. People hate Monday, and there's, you know, but what you're talking about, so much of that goes into, you know, and a lot of that, it cycles back to people that are, you know, maybe they're unhappy at work, maybe they have other issues, so they, you know, the vast majority of people that are working, you know, Monday, Friday, 9 to 5 type stuff, you know, and I had a job that I didn't like either, and I used to dread Monday and all that, but, you know, it's almost like such a relief when you get to Friday, and so it's so important to take a step back and say, okay, well, why am I behaving this way? And is it really worth it? Because again, I look at it like it's all pieces of a puzzle. And if you're constantly going out on weekends and, you know, overeat, drinking to excess, eating to excess, and all of that stuff, typically there's a reason for it. And a lot of times, you know, if that's something in your life, then, you know, again, start to take action. That doesn't mean you go and quit your job on Monday. But what it means is, okay, well, maybe I need to figure out something else, you know, so that I'm not running. So I'm not just living for those 2 days a week when I don't have to go in to deal with the people I don't like or the job I hate or whatever it might be, you know. And that's, I always think Monday, because I love Mondays, you know, but I didn't always. But it was one of those things. Now every week I'm excited about where I ended last week and where I get to pick up the ball and start running this week and things like that. And I genuinely wish people could get to that point where they feel that way in their own lives, because I've been on the other side of it, you know, and I know you have too, where you've had jobs that you weren't crazy about. And I feel like it all ties in with, you know, your fitness and your nutrition. It's like you've got to start, if you can, and again, if you can start the discipline with your fitness and your nutrition, it's going to spill over into the other facets of your life. And if you start making your body, more the way you want it to be, if you start sculpting your body, you start working on it, you're going to start getting that confidence that, hey, well, if I change this aspect of my life, then I can change that other aspect too,
Yeah, it gives you confidence in all things and makes you more successful in all things, relationships, work. Just makes you happier in general when you take better care of yourself. I wasn't going to say this earlier, but to me, it's I think we mentioned it before, but this is one of the pet peeves of mine is people always want their exercise when they come in, or I say always. I don't deal with it much anymore, but I used to a lot, and it would drive me crazy. Is they want me to entertain them.
Oh yeah.
And to me, it's the same shit you were just talking about with being, like you're unhappy somewhere else, so you search for it in other places, and basically your life lacks balance, and you don't have a purpose, like we mentioned. But that just drives me crazy. Like, why are you going out all weekend drinking and eating like shit? And usually it's because you're not happy with other aspects of your life. And quite honestly, and again, I'm not perfect, so I'm not preaching, but the thing is like there's so many people I see, they keep themselves so busy, it's like they're avoiding something. And like, to me, I wish I could just sit at home all weekend and stare at the wall almost. I mean, not that extreme, but I can be perfectly happy sitting in my house by myself doing nothing. And I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, and I get a lot of human interaction during the week too, but I mean, it's just like people are just constantly chasing something. It's like, just slow down. Like, just sit down and fucking relax for a second and take a deep breath. Like, it's nuts. And I mean, the same thing with exercise. Like, you stay so damn busy that you have no idea which way's up and which way's down. It's like, and I mean, I tell people this all the time, like, life is not that hard.
Yeah.
Like, you make shit so complicated. Stop eating shit out of a box.
Right.
Stop binging on exercise, on alcohol, on food, and just breathe.
Yeah.
Like, slow down.
Yeah, it's so weird, and I'm lucky because for a long time I was a musician, and I had all these goals. And it's so funny because my goals ended up, like, I met a lot of them, but my point is I was always happier when I was in the middle, when I was working towards those goals.
Absolutely.
And that's what like when you talk about it. And that the reason I bring that up is because it goes back to having the purpose, and it goes back to all of this stuff ties into the same thing where it's like, look, if you have a goal weight, if you have a goal dress size, if you have a goal, I don't know, whatever it is, like that goal, getting to that goal is, it's only a fraction of what you should feel on the way there. And I know that's something that people talk about, like the process, but it really is, until you find something where you love the process, where it's, if you're working on your body, or you're working on your profession, whatever that might be, like, if you're not fully engaged and like, if you're not loving working towards your goal, then I don't think you've got the right goal set for yourself. And I think if you can step back, if you can take a minute and step back and say, like you said, there are always people that are, it's an easy trap to fall into, or it's like, well, I'll just take another vacation, or I'll live for the weekends and binge to excess on whatever I'm binging on. I just think that if you can pull yourself back and look at why you're doing what you're doing, and then if you can't figure out, if you don't have a good solid answer for that, then maybe reevaluate what you're doing and try to figure out, because if you do figure out a long-term goal that you can work towards, that you can enjoy the process of working towards, you're going to be so much more fulfilled in your life that you're not going to need the happy hours and the whatever you're using to, like you said, distract yourself from the 45, 50 hours a week when you're not doing something you're passionate about,
Yeah. That reminds me of two good quotes. Number one is, and I may mess this one up because this one's just off the top of my head, but if you want to get something done, give it to the busiest person you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of times these behaviors are the result of boredom. And, when we're sit there to ourselves, we come up with all sorts of problems or whatever. The other one I just pulled up on my phone here, so I'm sure I'll screw this guy's name up. But he is a 19th century German philosopher. His name is Friedrich Nietzsche, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've seen the name.
Yeah.
But I can't say it either. I know exactly.
Yeah. His quote, and this... I've seen this in relation to the concentration camps in Germany.
Sure.
So, and there's a great book, Man's Search for Meaning. Same thing, talks about purpose. And that was written by Viktor Frankl, and he talks a lot about how men would come in there that were, these big, huge, strapping dudes, and they would be dead in a week.
Yeah.
And then other guys would come in and they were real frail, and they would survive the whole thing.
Right.
So he talks about purpose, and he talks a lot about purpose in as far as like in relation to suicide and depression.
Sure.
So and then he also used this quote of I'm going to call the guy Nietzsche in his book Man's Search for Meaning, and the quote is, "He whose life has a why can bear almost any how." And the thing is about that, like, and I've mentioned this in other podcasts too, and where people, like, I'm very logical, I guess you could say, and very, to me, life, people make it way too hard. So if you want to achieve something, like, write down a plan and follow it, and then adjust it based off of your results. And get your emotions out of it.
Yeah.
So many people get their emotions. They want to be entertained. They want to have fun and all this other shit. And it's like you were saying, like, to me, having fun is reaching my goals.
Sure.
And kind of to go back to what we were talking about, this binging thing is not that I'm 100% focused 100% of the time, but I'm honest with myself when I'm not.
Yeah.
And I say, you know what? You're screwing up. We need to get back on track. And I feel like that's a big problem in today's society is most people are not honest with themselves. And that's something, I see that a lot, and it troubles me because it's like, if you can't even be honest with yourself, it's not a big deal.
No.
Like, it's really not a big deal. The big deal is that you won't admit it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want to eat M&Ms all day. Okay, cool.
Right. And you can do that, but here's what's going to come along with it.
Yeah. Yeah, so
there's a laundry list of issues. You can do that, but you can't do that and be a size 32.
Yes.
Like, and that's there's
for a man.
Yeah, yeah, true. And there was a talking about quotes, there was something where I'm on the internet all day and I saw something, being an adult is having the "we have food at home" talk with yourself. But I think it's funny. But I think it's one of those things where, when we're kids. You and I are close to the same age, so we grew up in the 80s and 90s and stuff. We had you had your parents as a kid to, like, keep you in line.
Yep.
As a grown up, I still mentally, I don't feel any different than I did when I was 25 years old, even though now I'm 40 years old. So it's like you've got to be able to look at yourself and being honest with yourself. It can be difficult to do, but it's one of the most important things to do in life if you want to truly make any changes at all. Because the first step is looking at not beating yourself up like a lunatic and not going out of control and hating yourself, but saying, okay, this is where I am, this is where I want to be, this is how I'm going to get there. And then start taking those steps. And it's like you said, it's all about, it doesn't matter. I mean, whether if somebody wants to play guitar, like, I want to learn how to play guitar. I'm like, okay, well, you need to set aside 20 to 30 minutes a day, 4 to 5 days a week. And practice, and that's it. It's that simple. And if you want to get better, you up your time. You know what I mean? But it's everything in life that's worth having is consistency. You've got to be able to do the right thing the majority of the time, because you're going to do the wrong thing. Everybody's going to screw up, and you've got to acknowledge the fact that, like you said, I made a mistake. All right, I was off track. Whatever. But it's sometimes it's not easy to do that. And I think some people, they just don't want to look in the mirror and take responsibility for their own actions, when if they would do that, that's the very first step to getting things, getting your life the way you want it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know if tragic's the right word, but I mean, I deal with that. You know, I want all my clients to succeed.
Yeah.
And I mean, quite honestly, whether you're a client or not, if somebody asks me for advice, I want them to be successful.
Sure.
The problem is a lot of times I want them to be successful more than they want to be successful.
Right.
And it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if I could do it for you, I would.
Yeah.
You know, but you're not even willing to help yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, and this industry doesn't help it any with all the terrible misinformation out there, you know, and that's kind of the purpose of, you know, that's kind of my purpose, is to eliminate all the bad information, all the fads, all the bullshit, you know, and it's kind of like Frizella, you know, he gives you the same stuff about life, you know,
Yeah.
it's refreshing to hear those messages, to be quite honest with you, because, you know, I'm very black and white the way I am. It's how I was raised. And a lot of times it's like, man, am I crazy?
Yeah.
You know, and then you hear a message like this or like Frisella, and it's like, no, I'm doing the right thing. Hard work does pay off. You know, you got to be consistent. You got to do the little things. You got to have a plan. There are no secrets.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a big thing for me that makes me question a lot of things, is you hear these people who have a secret, or, you know, you see somebody and you're like, man, how did they, you know, how were they so successful at whatever it was they're doing?
Sure.
And a lot of times people will appear to be successful and they're not, or they are successful but they're not going to tell you why.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to say it's this secret or this fad or whatever it is, when, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, we can achieve almost anything we set our minds to, but the main ingredient is hard work.
That's absolutely right.
And being consistent, like you said. And it's like what I said earlier. Life is not that hard.
No,
we make it complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things, you know, and I look at it as, you know, and I think Tony Robbins is one of the guys that talked about it. Like, we are built for adversity. We're built for survival. So we're built to look for trouble and avoid it or whatever. So if you're not training yourself to look for the good, then it's real easy to find things to be, you know, upset about or frustrated with or whatever. But really, and like you said, there's never been a better time right now. I mean, to take advantage of all of the knowledge that's out there. Literally, if you want to do anything, you can find somebody who's done it online, and you can find the roadmap. And there are people out there that, you know, they won't tell you that there are people that were, you know, born on third base and act like they hit a triple. You know what I mean? And those people, like, that, you're like, how do you do so well? Like, oh, you know, he'll sit there and say, oh, you know, I did this, and this, but you didn't find out that his great grandfather invented spandex, or, you know, something like. Well, and so there are those people out there that have had, you know, that were given a head start in life from birth, but there's a devil of a lot of people that didn't have anything and just figured out early that if they you know, got after whatever they were seeking, that they would eventually get that goal. And then they just kept, you know, and it becomes a habit when you start doing things well. And I always tell people, when it comes to, you know, finding a job you're passionate about, whether that means working for yourself or somebody else, the one thing that I learned when I was a full-time musician for 15 years, then I went back into the corporate world for 2 years. And after working for myself for 15 years, then I went back and I worked for somebody else, is I found myself working a lot harder. I'm not like bragging, but it wasn't crazy for me because I was so used to working that hard on my own thing. So even if you go out and you strike out on your own, or if you try something, even the worst case scenario is you're going to build up your work ethic because you don't mind doing the work. And when you don't mind doing the work, and when you're actually working towards something, it's a lot easier to sit down and say, okay, yeah, I put in 12 hours today. It didn't feel like it. It was great. You know, I put in 15 hours today, whatever. And then when it's almost like you're swinging a bat with the weight on it. And then when you go to an office where you're working for somebody else, you take the weight off the bat, and it's like, well, nobody else in there, they're all doing, you know, they're all playing the game essentially. And I feel like a lot of people, and they do that in life, like they go to the gym to check a box, They're
Yep.
playing the game. It's the same thing with, regardless of, well, I go to church to check a box. I'm not really passionate about it. Or I'm supposed to, I've always done it, so I'm going to do it, and it's just a shame. You don't need to live that way, because nobody's going to get mad if you make a plan to adjust whatever area of your life needs adjusting in order to, like you said, find out your purpose and then get after it and go after it every single day,
Yeah, I'll kind of approach that a little differently, and what I will say, and what I've said a lot, maybe not on this podcast, but I've said it to individuals. My thing is regret.
Yeah.
I don't want to regret shit, because I regret a lot from my childhood. I regret not working hard at athletics when because I didn't believe in myself.
Yeah.
And my thing is with all this is, like, even if you do fail, you poured your heart into something and you failed. All right, which, 99 times out of 100, that's not going to happen. You're going to be successful. But the thing is I would rather have poured my heart into something and failed at it than wake up when I'm 50 or 60 years old and not know.
Yeah.
Not, and I could have, would have, should have done this.
Right.
So to me, that's a big driving force for me, is I don't want to wake up one day and have regret about it like I did, from growing up.
Yeah.
And I mean, childhood athletics aren't a big deal, but, when you're 60, 70, 80 years old, that's your life. And it's like,
yeah, you're not looking back at a high school football game. You're looking back at a career move.
Yeah.
Or a lack thereof, or whatever, of seeing an opportunity and not taking it.
Well, I mean, the thing I'm thinking of in that regard is, what if you're laying in a hospital bed?
Mm-hmm.
And, at that point, you've done 30 or 40 years worth of damage.
Yeah.
Of not taking care of yourself. There's nothing you can do at that point.
No.
I mean, there is, but you've done a lot of damage, and it's just, that's my thing, and that's how I look at things, and I feel like the conversation I have with a lot of people is they don't have that long-term vision. And again, I'm not perfect. I make bad decisions, but the thing is you got to be honest with yourself, and when you're when you're overweight, what damage are you doing to your health, and are you willing to live with that? If you're willing to live with that, cool.
Yeah.
If you're not, then the biggest favor you can do for yourself is being honest. And then if you're ready to change, seek out help and find somebody who's doesn't have the quick fix or the fad, but who's going to be honest with you and not,
Well, yeah, and a lot of those people, they want a secret. Well, they don't want a secret; they want a shortcut, and that's the reality of it, is, like, there's just not one. It doesn't.
Shortcuts hard work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's no quick fix. It's anything worth having it's going to be, there's going to be a process involved. There's going to be a lot of work involved in getting it, and that's fine, because you're gonna find that when you're doing that work, you're gonna end up enjoying it if you're working towards something that you believe in.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it didn't take you 90 days to gain the weight.
Correct.
You're sure not going to lose it in 90 days either. It's a 20, 25 year process that, you've been going through to get to this point. And, it's and what we talk to all of our clients about is a lifestyle behavior change, where you need to, be consistent and those sort of things. So to kind of circle back around to the binging thing is, the answer to a bad day is not to try and make up for it the next day. The answer is to get back on track. You don't need to do more than you normally do. And to kind of go back to the balance thing and all that kind of stuff, what I always tell people is figure out how to eat right first before you add anything else in, any exercise, any supplements, any of that stuff. We are not normally fat.
Right.
Like, we are fat because we overconsume.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that a lot of people can lose weight just by stop eating all the processed bullshit that we eat.
Yeah.
And then if you want to look at exercise after that. Get your nutrition right first, Start out by stop eating fast food, stop eating stuff out of a box, stop drinking stuff that has calories in it. Just eat the kind of food you'd be eating if there wasn't all the industrialized stuff that we have today.
Yeah.
Meats, vegetables, whole grains, fruits, water.
Yeah.
It's just we make shit so complicated. It's just, be active every day, go for a walk, and stop eating like crap. And if you have a bad day, check it off as a bad day and move on.
Yeah.
But
no reason to dwell on it.
Yeah. So, that's pretty much what I have for today. How about you? You got anything else?
No, I think that's, I live it, and I'm like everybody else. It's one of those things where I've been healthy, I've been unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, when you said you wanted to talk about this today, I'm like, yeah, man, because I've done this, like the weekend cycle thing.
Yep.
And again, I'm not even lying to myself about it. Like, I know when I'm doing it, I know I'm doing it. You know what I mean? So I think it's a great topic. I think a lot of people out there, you've gotta just, be honest with yourself and then make those changes. Like you said, it's not easy, but it's simple, really.
Yeah, I think something else we probably we touched on a little bit and maybe need to mention in the end here is figure out why you're making the bad decisions you're making.
Yeah.
Solve that problem, as well. That's what I whether it's you're not getting enough sleep or whether it's you're not happy in your relationship or happy at work or whatever it is, why are you seeking these outside forms of entertainment? Maybe you do like going out, which, I'm not saying I don't enjoy it. Yeah. I'm not crazy by any means or anything. I enjoy that stuff too, but I enjoy staying in shape and feeling good more than those things most of the time. So, you just gotta find a balance, and when you have a bad day, don't starve yourself and do 8 hours of cardio the next day.
Yeah.
So, I think that's all we got. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, drop us a comment or send us a message. Have a good day.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you for listening to the Plunkett Fitness Project. Please share with your friends, subscribe, rate, and review. For more info, visit our website, plunkettfitness.com.